traffic.
Yeah.
Cancelled at the stadium.
Because I remember saying to me,
Gonna ask that in the morning. Like, why are they holding out?
it's not a string you buy, things involved.
Well, you guys have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, there's a previous writer actually. Thank you, everybody. Let's
Started stadium.
kick off this information session.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Aaron, ready to go?
Sorry, we're just harassing Richard.
Right, so we have Selena, Richard, and Melanie in the back there, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Right, the floor is yours, guys.
Afternoon, and firstly, thank you very much for having us. It's good to be here to chat with you. So yes, Selena to my right, and Melanie and Kate Connell at the rear there. I'll do a quick intro and then I'll let Selena take you through the slides. Happy to chuck questions at us as we go. So the backstory to these, what we call these strategic transport plans, is we used to do pretty complicated, what we call program business cases, and they basically took too long, cost too much. So we decided to simplify things, and in this kind of what we have is an NLTP period, which is similar to your LTP. We've got a range of these strategic transport plans. This is about the third or fourth one we've got underway across the country. There's been one for the Auckland motorways that's now complete. We're quite well advanced on a Queenstown one. There's Queenstown specific, it doesn't look much further than that. And this one for Wellington, and a Tauranga one are the kind of third, fourth and fifth off the list. So the kind of high level look at key areas that we know are problematic, and they're not going to solve all the questions. Some of them might come to a conclusion that further detailed work needs to be done. But what it does is lead you into further technical work and bids for funding. So it's an important phase to go through. If you don't kind of have this, it's very difficult to get through the next phase. We're at really early days on this one. We've been to speak to the Hornby Community Board, and Christchurch City Council is doing some work on a local area plan for the Hornby Town Centre itself. The area that we're looking at is slightly wider than that. And I guess particularly relevant to you is some of those parts of the state highway, Sawyers Arms Road, etc., Waldhurst Road, that we'll be looking at the functioning of those intersections, how they work, and whether we can do better. So that's the theory behind them. I'll hand you over to Selena now to kind of take you through.
Thank you very much. We're going to the next slide. So we are working with the City Council on this. We thought it would be a good idea to have the proper consultation or the proper engagement as one story. So we have got the City Council talking about the local area plan. We have got NZTA talking about the state highway network. We've also got the regional council talking about the bus functions around there. So that's kind of the desktop page that's on the screen. And if you flip to the next slide, this is the NZTA specific one. So we are not starting from scratch. We have already got some themed problems that we have known about. So this early conversation is very much to say, have we got this right? Can you share some of your personal experiences with us? So we can have this conversation early on. There is a plan towards later part of the year. Once we've got some ideas of what we are going to plan for the next 30 years, some of the big items that we're thinking about, we will be going back here as well as to the stakeholders group, just to let them know our thinking before we finalize the plan. Next slide would be really the study area that we're looking into. So yeah, as Richard has mentioned previously, it is very much that sort of state highway network within your sort of area that you may be interested in. And the plan that we would like really to guide how changes to the state highway network should look like, considering there are so much growth, both in the districts as also the sort of northwest area of Christchurch. It is just very strategically located, and we do see that as the population of Christchurch grow, the demand for those areas is going to be grow at the same time. So we would like to know, or we would like to plan ahead, just so that we know what is about to come, if those growth does become reality. And so that's kind of us.
Okay, I'll solve some questions, and Aaron, you can go first.
Cool. So a couple. First up, what's your longer term strategy? How far out do you go? Because, and it's not my idea, it was an old lady on Talkback, but it was a great idea. And so I thought I'd pass it on. There's a dead straight line that goes from Rolleston through West Melton, put in another bridge over the river and go all the way to Amberley, and it pulls 45 minutes out of the big arc you do to come through the edge of Christchurch and burn up our motorway space. So when you're thinking New Zealand Inc., Canterbury Inc., that is the motorway that needs to go in at some point. And I thought I'd raise it here because if that map's further out, it's a perfect straight line, and it links and it goes straight through the back of Rangiora as well. So you get Rangiora to Amberley and right across to Rolleston, and it's almost perfectly straight. When did we raise that?
Well, yeah.
Great, because that's part of that's our ward. So that was one point I wanted to raise. And then the other one is the flyovers. You'll be surprised, Richard, on Johns Road. How do we as a board get those in the national vision of State Highway 1? So Sawyers Arms and Harewood Road, morning and afternoon, you're banking up 30,000 vehicles a day, just losing time, money, fuel's getting scarce at the moment apparently. So these things are important. How do we get those? They were in the original plan and they got pulled out by someone. How do we get them back? Or do we make it an election issue this year when they're all bidding and trying to bribe everyone?
Probably not for us to speak to what should and shouldn't be election.
Think what you can.
I'll leave that to the elected members. But from our perspective, that's the purpose of the study, is to look at those pinch points on the network and see how bad it is, and then we would probably do a bit of a high level. What does this kind of look like? We would need to follow up with some more detailed work because there's always. Our three biggest risks are basically statutory approvals, property and procurement. So those are the things that challenge us the most in terms of capital delivery. And we only really know what that looks like when you get into the detailed design phase, which is a wee bit beyond where we are. At the moment, we're just kind of globing out and go, hey, we know this. There's some real pain points on this part of the network. We know, the ones you've referred to, Councillor, are certainly up there. We just don't know the scale of the problem. So we need to do some modelling, we need to work it out, and then go through a bit of a few more phases before we get to that. So there may have been, back when the first RONs were done and that part of the state highway network was put in past the airport, you are right, there was some consideration of potential grade separation or flyovers or whatever you want to call it. At that stage, the decision was made not to proceed with them.
Spend that money at that time.
Yeah, so, but there was a broad acknowledgement that, at some stage in the future, you're probably going to be looking at that, but the problem wasn't sufficiently bad when compared with other parts of the network at that time. So we may very well have reached that stage now whereby it kind of meets the trigger, but those sorts of things are all prioritised nationally. So it's not us going, hey, this is a big deal in Christchurch and Christchurch gets X amount of dollars, let's put this at the top of the list. That will need to prioritise against an Auckland project to Tauranga.
I think you were head of transport when we got the Ron Steel, eh? Were you head of?
I was working at council. Yeah, I was head of transport.
So was it signed off pre or post quake? Because the traffic movements have changed dramatically.
It's definitely the idea of the ones was pre-quake, and then most of them were delivered post-quake.
Yeah, but the plan to not do the flyovers was made.
Oh, yeah, that was post-quake. So I think there was recognition that something like Sawyers Arms Road, yep, that's going to be a problem in the future, but we can not spend the money now and put it somewhere else.
Yep.
But in 10, 15 years, you probably need to. But you do need to be aware of the fact that if you were to, say we were to grade separate Sawyers, you'd probably a whole lot of vehicles would reroute along Sawyers Arms Road. So that's another consideration you as the road controlling authority for Sawyers Arms would need to, kind of consider.
Couple of questions from me. So another one is just something to consider is at the moment there isn't a particularly safe pedestrian crossing point across the motorway to get from Sawyers Arms Road to Rotorua Reserve. So it's the largest and one of the most popular freshwater swimming spots and just kind of recreational spots in Christchurch. We don't have bus access over there and we don't have safe pedestrian access over there. Yeah, so just be your heads up, any kind of planning around that, if there could be some consideration around safe pedestrian crossing across that roadway. Because that's something we've had raised a little bit with residents in the past. When we've tried to raise it with ECAN and a few other different people, but obviously ECAN's got some funding issues at the moment when it comes to adding or changing bus routes. So not a huge ability to make those changes. And then just on the flyover stuff that Aaron was talking about from my perspective, is there, obviously you said there needs to be some modelling done or some more work, like early investigation work on that. Is that something which you guys will just do off your own back, or do you need like the likes of support or requests from the community board or council or something to like help facilitate those things? Because how do you guys prioritise how that work gets done so that we can try and advocate for that to get that kind of stuff progressed as promptly as we can?
Yeah, look, so what we'll do with this is we'll take a high level look at all those areas. We'll definitely, do model runs and all the rest to see where the key pinch points are. If we are kind of, what we'd likely do, and jump in if I'm getting any of this wrong, Selena, is if we get to the point and we say, hey, Sawyers Arms are a real problem, we think it probably needs to be grade separated, we'd need to go back and request further funding to do what's called an investment case or something like this. So this is, you think about the project life cycle, this is kind of not far from the beginning. This is the high level strategic look, and then if we go, okay, Sawyers is a real pain, you do what's called an investment case, that'll shape it up, put some costs in, give us a BCR, and then that's where it kind of gets compared with other parts of the country for funding and everything else. And then we'd move into what we call the detailed design. That's where you do your property and consents and everything else. So that takes a few years to work your way through that kind of that project lifestyle cycle. And like I said, property, consenting, procurement are the biggest risks. I wouldn't want to give you advice as to what the best thing to do to advocate for stuff is. That's kind of up to you. We'll do the work, and we're very much evidence-based. So, but that is in of itself is not a guarantee that we're going to get the funding to deliver something, because it depends on a whole other range of matters such as the direction and the GPS, how much funding is in that activity class. There's a lot more work to be done before we can say we're likely to be grade separating Sawyers Arms, for instance, or upgrading the Oldhurst Road.
Yeah. So I'll just have one more, just on that one, and then you, Bridget. So once all of the planning and the business cases have been put together, is the prioritisation then a political decision that's made by government, or is that decision made at the ministry?
Yeah, so we're different to the ministry. We're a Crown agency, so the ministry provides the minister support to write this, and that provides the direction of how we prioritise stuff. So there's generally 3 components around how we prioritise it. So it's a decision made internally, and it's made by our board, but there is political direction that goes into it through this document here, which sets out the government's priorities – and also provides the board with starts to get quite complicated, but we have these things called activity class, and the one you'd be talking about is the State Highway Improvements Activity Class, and if there's X number of funding available, X amount of funding available for that, that will influence how many projects can advance, but more in that bucket means less in another one. So that component of it is political. The prioritisation is done within the organisation and approved by the board.
So I just had a question around the engagement piece. Am I right in thinking that through this project you're going to be engaged? Engagement will look like talking with stakeholders and affected residents, even talk me through what that engagement looks like, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so far we are doing it as a team with both City Council and also our regional council.
Oh, yeah.
We have been to the likes of Kiwi Rail, the airport, Hornby Cup, and yeah, we will be talking to emergency services. So they are the type of stakeholder groups. We had a freight forum as well. So all the freight operators, we had a chat with them just to share the information we got and get some ideas and some of their personal experiences from them. So that's the extent that we are going. The Let's Talk page as well. So anyone who's interested and want to give us ideas, that page is available online, and we will be collecting all those comments and input as an input to the study.
I see. So if residents wanted to comment or be engaged, their main or their only avenue would be the Let's Talk website.
That would be the most direct route.
Yeah, it's not like are you talking to residents association? So
City is organising.
Oh, the Christchurch City Council is organising that stuff.
Yeah, they're organising who we talk to with the sort of resident association.
Yeah.
I don't have the list with me right now, but we can double check.
I mean, I guess just from a community board perspective, that's who we represent. So, we get we're going to be, if I could give you any suggestions or, or view from our point, it would be to involve the residents, but I appreciate that, there can be a squeaky wheel situation in that case, but also, but associations would be really helpful. And of course, they live there and it's in their backyard, so that's super important. Yeah.
We will look into.
Cool, great.
One more from me, just in terms of timeframes, when you say you maybe it'll be able to answer this one, may not. So you start doing a scoping exercise, and then you do the early analysis, and then you do your business case, and then it works its way through the process. What would be the average time frame between something being identified to actually getting delivered, assuming it went through, a relatively smooth? Are you talking 10, 15 years? What kind of project timeframes are you working to when you have things like that come up?
When do we finish this piece of work?
We will finish this piece of work before Christmas. So
so this is this bit, but then obviously the funding, if we actually see something delivered, like end to end, what is that? Because
so say for it all depends on how much resources and everything else we put in it. For the RONs, the roads of national significance, say the Belfast to Pegasus investment case, we did that in about 14 weeks.
Yep.
So, but we had a lot of resource chucked at that to do it really quickly. So, we can do an investment case and turn it around pretty quickly. Then it goes up to the board. It was about 20 weeks all up with the, start point and board reporting and all the rest of it. So that's pretty quick. And then the detailed design phase for that we've done in about 10 months. But that's a pretty big project. This is a lot, potentially a lot simpler if you're looking at a single grade separated point over the state highway. So those are the sorts of timeframes you can work to.
So 12 to 18 months potentially, and then you have the tendering and procuring and then delivery process, whatever.
Yeah. So you're looking at probably 2 or 3 years. The statutory stuff that's like I said, that can take a long time. So we could have everything designed up and costed, but we wouldn't know what the designation conditions were. So those costs would have a big question mark over them, and property can be quite challenging as well. So yeah, you can do all the design work, but not be ready to go because of those other issues. So, but I think end of this year we'll be finished that. If we get approval, we could go into an investment case next year. then detailed design, what's that, 27, so you could go, you know, the end of next year type thing. Most of the work would be done.
Could have a plan.
28 type thing, 29. If the trigger was pulled.
So a couple of other things then. One is, how aware are you of what Wish are doing?
Yep.
So you're aware, you know their stuff, you've probably been moved into Queenstown.
Queenstown is within, I look after the South Island, so.
Right, okay, so you know them well. If our council went ahead with doing something like a first tranche, and it went from the stadium to the university, like through that way as our tester to see, because it's 8% of the cost of MRT, of doing the MRT route. So if it's a disruptor and it works, then a lot more can be delivered for a lot less. So doing a demonstrator where tourists would pay $30 to ride it would make sense because it would have a fast payback. What percentage would NZTA likely put in to a program like that if we were putting in money as well?
So look, it's not part of the state highway network, so you know we fund our own stuff obviously at 100%. For local road projects that are eligible for our funding, we can fund up to 51%.
Right.
I would say we are quite heavily involved in gondola considerations for Queenstown, which has a raft of transport challenges. I think there's quite a bit of work to be done to validate the applicability of that here in Christchurch. So,
but if we did a business case and it stacked up, so that's about 3 or 4 steps, what percentage would likely be support put in by the government? Would it be a 50-odd%, or is it 30, or is it a 0?
Look, I think it's
if it goes to the university, it's on Wish at 7 minutes from the inner city to the university, which means students can now live in town. And that was one of the big discussion points post-Quake was, should we move the university to town? This is miles cheaper than trying to move uni to town. And then would have a whole lot of developers build properties specific for students right in the centre city. And so there's a big value there, but
we're speaking in hypotheticals. So say it was part of the public transport network, it would need to be part of the public transport network to be eligible for our funding. It would need to find its way through quite a circuitous process. All bids from the region need to be included within the regional transport plan. That would be something that would need to be put forward by or supported by Environment Canterbury, because it would need to be part of the PT network, and they are the Public Transport Authority. So, and then say it went through all those hoops and it stacked up and all the rest of it, and it was part of that, then it may be eligible for, you know, the standard funding assistance rate is 50-odd%, but I don't want you to walk away with the impression that we think that is likely, because there is a lot of work to be done on those.
Is that the amount you put into buses at the moment?
So we fund some of CCC's projects up to 51%, like Pages Road Bridge, you know, but we're not funding some of the adjacent works because we don't feel that kind of is consistent with this. For buses, it's a bit of a mixture of rates, private share, i.e. fares, and us. So it's kind of a 3 kind of funding streams that go into paying for buses.
Any other questions? Nicola?
Hi, I'm sorry, this might not be the right place to ask, but if it's about the engagement, and I see on there you've got talking about State Highway 1's doing a lot, and you know, if you want people to give feedback if they're noticing risky driving and buses running late. So is this the place for people to leave their feedback for example, it's not quite the Greater Hornby area, but it is part of State Highway 1, like if they're noticing risky driving on intersections or things like that, is that where they would?
Yeah.
It's just I had a couple of people actually write to me today about accidents, you know, the Old Hurst Road and State Highway 1
turning right. It's not
Yes.
going, and people doing U-turns because they're not turning right. And there was a lady had a big accident today because someone did a U-turn and smashed right into her trying to turn back. So would this be one of the places that they can?
Yeah, so look, we'll get all the technical data, do the modelling runs, and you know, there's the database which measures all reported crashes.
Yes, because they,
But that's not everything. So
It's not
we still want to
everything.
hear from the public about stuff that they're noticing. So that all feeds into the information, and then pops out at the end.
thank you.
Any other final questions? No? Great. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having us.
Appreciate it.
See you.
Cheers.
Thank you.